Welcome to All Worn Out. I'm your host, Warren Meredith. On the show today, guitarist, vocalist, and founding member at the Jailbirds, it's Myke Penney. Myke loves music. He's been passionate about it since he was 11 years old. He hasn't looked back. Now he's also a proud member of the new band, The Wild High, with Jon Harvey. Let's get into it now with Myke Penney. Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Worn Out. It's a podcast about music. It's a podcast about what you're passionate about. And it's a podcast about what our guest is passionate about. We are super lucky, thrilled, pumped. One of my favorite vocalists from the scene. He is a rocker after my own heart. We have the very amazing Myke Penney. Myke, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How about you?
I am excellent. You are episode 67. We are just rolling along here. I did not know that we'd ever go past 64. For some reason, I had in my head like N64, but we're rolling way past that now. So,
yeah.
All right, Myke. So you're part of some pretty phenomenal bands, in my opinion. You're part of the Jailbirds.
Yep.
You're also part of the Wild High.
That's correct, yes.
How are you finding that, splitting the time between two projects?
It's definitely a juggling act. Yeah, it's a lot. I'm in a pretty lucky position to be able to do both, honestly. It's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of rehearsals and shows and coordination and lots of stuff. It's pretty wild. We do kind of cross over. I end up recording a lot of stuff for both bands now, so there's a little bit of a crossover with that, which is nice, and it kind of helps. And everybody, I will say this too, everybody on both teams is super cool with me being in both bands too. That is essential to the whole thing. John and everybody in Wild High, Ryan and Pete and Xander, and then obviously the guys in Jailbirds, Liam and Kevin, they're all super supportive of both entities. And that without that, it wouldn't work at all. But yeah.
Obviously, it takes a lot of support and planning, and you need to have awesome band members. I only ever met your bassist before from the Jailbirds. Is that
right?
Is that Kevin?
Liam.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that, Liam. My apologies. But yeah, Liam was an awesome guy, and that's why I wanted to just say, like, when I met you guys, you were awesome. You put on a great show, but you were very humble, and I could tell, cool dudes. And I think that's something people want to see out of rockers, is that they're just cool dudes, and you guys totally are.
Thanks, man.
So I want to first talk about how maybe you are a little more prepared for this than other people, because you went to college for this, didn't you?
For recording, yeah, I went to college for recording and music business, and that was the music industry arts program at Fanshawe College there. That was 10 years ago now. So that's a wild thought. Yeah, that was really huge for me. You know, the professors that work there, they're still within the industry. You know what I mean? So they still work within it and still are doing things all the time, you know, in and out of college there. And I think that's really their support and their knowledge really set me up in a great way. I'm very lucky to have a lot of teachers like that, even high school teachers. My guitar teacher, when I was going through high school as well, in a private lesson setting. I'm so lucky to have so many like mentors like that, you know, in my life. And I think about it a lot, actually. I'm very grateful for it. It's, cool.
That's an awesome thought. And yeah, I know it was a long time ago, but still, your professors or your teachers from the time, I think they'd be looking now and they'd be quite happy. They'd be quite proud. They'd be going, yeah, Mike's still doing this and he's excelling in this. And this is a very difficult industry. Sometimes I talk to people who are just starting out and, you know, they want to move fast.
Yeah, totally, man.
and you're just like, well, we'll see about that. You know, I don't like to tell anybody, no, you can't do it or you can't be, you know, the next one to skyrocket. But my experience is it's a lot of work and building blocks. And like you said, meeting the right mentors, and they take you along. I talked yesterday with somebody who was in the program at Durham College, and they were going to school when they were third year when Cleopatra entered the program.
Oh.
So, you know, people can say that college is not necessary, but I'll tell you something. I find it makes connections. Like you said, you meet people who are still in the industry, and if you're serious, they'll see that.
Yep, exactly. I still meet people today that are like, "You were in MIA?" I was like, "Yeah," and they were like, "Oh, I was this year." You know, like all the time. They're everywhere. You know what I mean? It's a good icebreaker, especially with networking. Sometimes you're just like, we have that shared connection, you know, and yeah, it's nice to see. I still see some of my teachers like our posts and stuff. It's really cool, actually. It's a really great community of people. And yeah, the teachers are fantastic. And I was very lucky to have a great year of peers as well. Like I still have a bunch of friends from there. And yeah, it's a great program. I would highly suggest it for anybody wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, there's several, like, I did TV broadcasting, I don't know, 20 years ago? No, 15 years ago, something like that, here in Ottawa at Algonquin College. And still, it was fantastic for meeting people in that industry and making those types of connections. And then later on, with my first band, I ended up convincing someone from the MIA program at Algonquin to hop into my band. And so that was a real coup for recording and whatnot at the time, you know?
Yeah.
I think we put a little too much pressure on the guy, to be honest with you. But I mean, again, lessons we learn.
Yeah.
We were recording in a barn, just quickly. We were recording in like a 150-year-old barn that had like mice in the walls. And I can remember, you know, this gentleman who was helping us record, who was the teacher in the program. And he's like, well, look, we can't afford this and we can't afford this. Like, I've made a list of stuff that we can't afford. And it was like warm audio gear, but it was like just coming out. Like, it was fairly new on the market. And he was like, we can't get this piece, but this warm piece, it's pretty close. It's not bad. And then we had friends from the program that lent us like the Neve and, you know, the microphone and certain things like that are just so difficult to come by.
Yeah.
Let's go back in time even further then. What is Myke Penney's, by the way, fantastic rock and roll name? Is that's your name?
That's my real name. Yeah.
Even the Y in Myke.
Yep.
I love
That's
it.
on my driver's license. Yeah. Mykel. My full name is Michael, but yeah, I go by Myke.
That's even more badass, in my opinion. Okay, I love that. All right. So we'll go back in time. How old are you? What's your first musical memory that it just really stayed with you? Maybe it's a hook. Maybe it's a childhood song.
I'm 30, first of all. And first musical memory, the first thing that comes to my mind is I was maybe 11 or something. I probably had experiences before that, of course, because my dad would always be playing. You know, he'd have like Bruce Springsteen or Neil Young on in the house and stuff, or in the car or whatever. And so I wasn't a huge fan of that when I was younger. I got more into like the hard rock and metal when I was a teenager and stuff. And I feel like I wasn't like fixated on music until this moment I'm about to explain here, which was about 11 years old. And my parents at the time were kind of trying different stuff out with me, like extracurriculars, if you will, you know, like soccer and stuff. And I wasn't really interested in a lot of that stuff. And sports really weren't my thing. And but in this moment, it's so funny. I can put myself back and I could tell you the street and everything. But we're driving along, and I don't know why, but Thunderstruck came on the radio, and it was just so captivating to me in that moment. And it was like, what the hell is going on? How is he doing this guitar thing, right? And I just was so fascinated, even before like the vocals came in. Like, we're talking like 10 seconds here, where it's just like that intro lick. And I was just like, I have to know how to do that. I don't know why I thought that. I'm just like, I need to know how he's doing this. This is crazy. And I just immediately spoke up and was like, "Can I do guitar lessons?" And then my parents were I remember them looking at each other like, "What the hell? Where'd that come from?" And yeah, again, they're obviously my biggest supporters. They were the ones putting me through all those lessons and putting up with the loud guitar noise in the house and everything. So they were my first supporters for sure. And they got me into lessons. Who I mentioned before, my teacher, Dion, he was great for that. I took lessons from him for like 6 years or something. And he was just so good at showing me what I needed to do, and it kept keeping it interesting. You know what I mean? Because I would just learn songs and stuff and learn fun stuff, and then after I learned the song, he'd be like, "Oh, this is what you're playing. This is the theory behind it. This is how it works." And then it was interesting at that point because it's like, "Oh, it's a Metallica song," you know what I mean, or something. But that's my first memory, I would say, is being so obsessed with that and just like, how do I do that? You know what I mean? Like that's sort of what started it all for me.
Interesting. So, how old? You said you were 11.
Probably 11. Yeah, I think 11.
So what's the first guitar you end up picking up? Do you pick up something expensive, or do you pick up like a cheap, like something not crazy?
It was a Soho pack, or Soho, I think is the brand. Yeah. Those starter packs came with the amp, came with all the stuff we needed and everything. And it was just a simple black Strat, nothing fancy, nothing really crazy at all. And that's what I started on. I had that for a long time. I regret that I got rid of it at one point. I wish I still had it. But that's what I started on, that piece of crap thing.
Hey, you never know. It might come back around to you someday. You'll see it hey,
that's the scratch. I recognize. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But I mean, I love guitar stories, and I find they're all personal. And I love like the story about Brian May, his dad making that freaking guitar for him. And just the thought of that, like, that's a humbling thought. Back in that time, I get stories from my dad about how like his grandma would sew clothes for like his brother and him, and my dad would like reject it and be like, no, that's not cool. But but his older brother would just suck it up and do it because he couldn't let mom down. So it just reminds me of that,
Totally.
So back in time, you're playing this guitar, you're taking lessons. How long till the first band?
So that would have been grade 7 or so, and then it was grade 8. So not shortly after that, we had a band put together, all our friends, and we did like a talent show thing for like the end of the year sort of assembly, whatever. And we did Schools Out because we thought that was the coolest thing to do at the end of the year. And we thought it was a big surprise too, obviously, but everyone knew we were going to do it because we were blasting it in the rehearsal room every day for like 2 months. So like, I think one of our teachers even said, like, it's not a secret because everyone can hear you rehearsing during lunch. You know what I mean? And we're like, oh, well, shit. But that was the first band, and that was that actually turned into like a high school band with some of those people, you know what I mean? And then that sort of morphed. It really actually morphed into Jailbirds, actually. Like kind of, if I think about it, it's kind of, that was the beginning of it, really. And that group of friends, like some of them didn't continue. And then we had Evan, our buddy. He played keys a lot, but he jumped on the drums. And then our buddy Brandon, him and I played guitar a lot together when we were younger, and he was a guitar player. That we used to have 2 guitar players, like at the very, very beginning of the band. And that was the beginning of it all. Grade 8. Yeah.
That is very unique. I think out of all the guests that we've had on here, or I've had on here, I'm not going to talk about myself in the third person yet, but out of all the guests that I've had on here, nobody has said that, they're still kind of working on a project from when they were 13, or that the project they're working on now has grown out of said thing. Like, so basically, since you were 11 or 13, you knew what you wanted to do. Like, you knew you wanted to do music.
there's
Man,
there's never been a break for me. I've never not been in a band since then, basically. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I was going to say you're so cool, and it's true. Like, man, damn. Like, I had no idea. I didn't know nothing back then, man. Like, in
Oh,
grade, like,
I had no
man.
idea what I was doing either. I just knew it was cool and I wanted to be a part of it. You know what I mean? That's what music is for me, just being a part of that cool thing, that Thunderstruck guitar lick, that's what it's all about. It always comes back to that, for me, just playing something cool on guitar.
Okay, so when do you figure out that, when do you start singing?
That wasn't until much, much later. It was sort of, high school. I had this great teacher named Miss Denise, and she was our music teacher in high school. I went to Meadowvale, High School in Mississauga, Ontario. And she was excellent, and she really pushed me to sing. Actually, she is pretty much the reason why I sang, actually, I would say, because I was against it. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. It's such a vulnerable thing, right? And I was like, no, I'm a guitar player. Like, I don't want to do that shit. And I think I did backup vocals for because we did a class project where we had to like lift a song and put together a band, and we already had a band, so we're like, oh, we're all in the same class. We're just like, great, we got a leg up on everybody. We've been jamming for years at that point, and we did like an alter bridge song or something crazy. And our singer at the time, Brandon, that guy I mentioned, he was singing lead, and I would do the backups and stuff. And then it was Miss Denise that said, you got a good voice, you should probably sing stuff. And I was like, no way, I'm not doing that. And it was just because I guess at first it was like all my favorite singers were really like they had that distortion, like Axl Rose, Chris Cornell kind of thing. And I just don't have that in my voice. It just really doesn't work for me. It's not what my voice is. And so it wasn't until actually Alter Bridge and stuff like that, where Miles Kennedy specifically, that was like, oh, like you can sing clean over this kind of stuff and it sounds sick. So maybe I could do it too. And it was, I think, those two influences at the same time, sort of thing. And but it wasn't until trying to think about it. I think it was sort of midway through college, after college, sort of thing. It was a little bit later on that I started taking some lessons and sort of, because at that point our band, it was called something different. We didn't have the name Jailbirds until like 2015 or something. But we were doing all these songs, and I would sort of tell the singer what to sing, how to sing it. Oh, you got to phrase it like this. I'd write the lyrics, oh, sing it like this, And eventually he was just like, why don't you sing it? And I was like, oh, okay. and then that's sort of how it started. It took a bunch of lessons, and yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
You did take a bunch of lessons.
Yeah, took lessons consistently for 3 or 4 years, like twice a week or so.
And when you took lessons, was it a lot of breathing technique, or was it discovering your range?
All of it. Yeah, I have a really great vocal coach. His name is Jason Hales in Burlington, Ontario, and he's done he did the opera program in Toronto and stuff. He's a very good opera singer and everything like that, and everything, he can sing and everything. But he showed me all that stuff, and breathing, how to, first of all, what is your range? Knowing that is super important. Knowing what you're capable of doing and not capable of doing is super important for any singer, in my opinion. And then how to breathe, how to use your diaphragm, all that stuff. You know what I mean? How to not use your throat and kill yourself during a show and stuff like that. Which is something, then you later on learn that a lot of singing is also like confidence too, right? And that was sort of something he also invoked in me too. But learned basically opera singing. You know what I mean? It's basically that in a nutshell.
Did that first teacher, Miss Denise, did she tell you at all? Did she hint at all, that you had a pretty insane range?
No, I didn't have a range like I do now. I think
it had to grow, right?
I had to build it. Yeah, it was something that I sort of I remember going into Jason's house at first when I first met him, and I showed him Iron Maiden. I was like, I want to sing like that. And he just laughed at me. He was like, okay, sure. Look at this kid. And like, that's, I showed him that and like, Miles and all these people. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do these high notes and everything. And he was like, okay, sure. And then, yeah, I mean, it was just a matter of, I was just so stubborn and determined to figure out how to do it. You know what I mean? That was just me. That's just who I am. I'm just like, if I want to do something like that, I'm just obsessed with figuring out how to do it. And I don't stop until I get there. You know what I mean? And Jason showed me how to do it. That's really, I praise him a lot, because I wouldn't be able to do anything without him, honestly, without his guidance like that. And I still go back every once in a while, especially before a big show or a recording or something, like a new song I want kind of working out or something. Maybe I'll go and work it out. But it's like, I did it for so long, like twice a week, that I feel like it's just muscle memory at this point now, which is where everybody wants to be, I guess, with lessons. But yeah.
Man, that's really cool. That's amazing to hear, because, when I saw you the first time, I was just mind blown, because I'd heard the recordings, but I mean, you did the Highway Star cover live, and now you've done the recording, and I'd encourage anyone to check it out, because I mean, that is so awesome. And it's like you said, like you wanted to sing like those guys, and you do. And so you should be very proud of that work ethic, and the fact that you have the humility to acknowledge that a lot of it is work ethic. Because I tell people, like, you can sing if you have an ear. Like, if you hear stuff, I believe anybody who hears can sing. And then once you've heard long enough, you still can sing. But that's just a weird whole other Beethoven-esque world. So, in our world, for me, when I discovered my voice, it was like, oh, I can pretty much, like, if I hear it, I can sing it. That was my thoughts originally. So it's really interesting that you point out, like, you need to learn your range and not force yourself out of it. I'm always pushing boundaries, but now I'm done with, I pushed out far enough. We'll put it that way. And now I feel like happy and comfortable where I am. And, I know what keys to suggest. Maybe and I think that's something, it's like you said, it's a good idea, can help a lot. And it makes things a lot easier for that producer. And you're not like rechanging the key all the time and trying to do that. But I mean, that high pitched voice, like the high end that you do, I think it's insane, man. It's really awesome. So like the songs where I find, so you just released a remaster of Tokyo Smoke, and you did a re-release of Your Love.
Yeah.
And both of those songs, I find they feature that high end that you can bring, where it like jumps up onto that top shelf. And I'm like, yeah, I love it. Hell yeah. And then what's really weird is when I listened to Our Time, my head was like, oh yeah, this is sludgy. And I swear to goodness, I had not yet read that the other track was called Sludge.
No way.
And yeah, man, I just totally, my brain picked up on vibes of sludge from Our Time.
Yeah.
Then I looked at the two songs. I'm like, oh, they're like sisters.
Yeah.
So I was like super happy that like my brain just automatically picked the word that you titled.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, man. And I just wanted to tell you, like, I thought that was really fucking cool.
That's like, that was actually a working title for that song, Sludge, too. Like, that was just the vibe it had, right? And we're like, oh, I'll just call it Sludge just to get a title on it. And it just stuck around because it was too perfect, and it became the subject matter and everything. So, yeah.
It's the vibe that the music is creating. And I mean, which is amazing. I think that shows that's what we want to do. We want to be able to create moods and environments even before we sing, you know?
Exactly.
Which I think you guys have gotten quite good at. And I'm getting a lot of modern rock vibes from the new stuff. versus in the older stuff, I definitely picked up on all of your influences, like 1,000%, all the classic rock, the old school stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm getting modern rock vibes off the new stuff.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because actually we recorded the High Noon EP, the beds for it and everything at the same time as the Jungle EP. So it was all it's all 5 years old now or so. But the lyrics came later. So that's a little bit different, obviously, in the melodies and stuff like that. But we sort of planned it like that, where we had like the more old school stuff kind of come out first or whatever. And it was just sort of we just had all these songs and we just felt like they fit, that these ones fit with this sort of release. And we want to pair these ones together for High Noon, you know? Yeah.
Interesting. That's very cool. And I mean, yeah, so let's go all the way back to 2019. Sure. It's a great year in my opinion. Because I released music that year too, man. That's like my first year of like releasing music. And had you released anything before? Like anything like cuz I released stuff before, but it's hidden.
Yeah. Deleted from the internet. Yeah. It never came out on Spotify or anything, but we had a band before Jailbirds that basically turned into Jailbirds. I don't even remember what it was called now, but we had an EP that we recorded at Recording College. Basically, we just did it ourselves, and that was very modern rock, you know. And we kind of shifted gears for that. Then we became Jailbirds, basically. That's the short end of it. But before that, we had our Black River EP, and that came out 2018 or 19, I think. I can't remember now. But that was basically our first real release out on the streaming platforms, all that stuff. And licensing, all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, all that fun stuff. So we can get our. Well, I don't know about you, but so I can get my 40 cents every 4 months or whatever it is. Well, in the good years, in the good times, it was like $9.49, and I was like, oh yeah.
Have a meal with
that. So like 2019 Black Truth 4-song EP. Then 2020, it's like Watery Grave, Dull My Brain, I'll Move On, and that's the Jungle.
Yep. The first EP is Black River.
Was the Black River.
Yeah.
So was that okay, so Watery Grave, was that linked through to the Black River like as a motif? Like the water?
No, it was just sort of what we were writing about. Actually Liam wrote the lyrics to that one. But Black River, the song Black River was actually written it's like a video game level that I played. I can't remember the game I played, but it was like the Black River was one of the things you could select which level you wanted to do next. And I was like, that's a cool name for a song. I should steal that. And then it sort of wrote itself. That song I always remember just in that moment thinking of the title. And then it was like, oh, and then the melody and the lyrics literally just came out on the page. You know what I mean? And it didn't change it, which is rare for me. Usually I change it a million times and just flip words and lines and everything. But that one was just front to back, boom, done. And then Watery Grave, written by Liam. That was just sort of what we wrote about, you know, all that sort of mythical shit, you know what I mean? We still got a hint of that, but like, especially back then, we were super into like, you know, Sabbath, and still am, but like really, really obsessed with Sabbath and Dio and, you know, stuff like that, Iron Maiden and all these things. And they talk about all that kind of stuff. So we were kind of like, how do we fit into that too? You know what I mean? How do we write kind of stuff like that? Jungle EP being sort of a concept EP too, right? It's just like Watery Grave is sort of, it's near the end of the track list. And so it's like, it's following the character through ups and downs through all these songs, right? And Watery Grave was sort of like the point where he realized his love interest was actually not what he thought, right? And yeah, that's how that song came about. It wasn't a conscious decision. actually, to make it like sort of an homage to Black River or anything. But we just like
Well,
water.
I like it because, see, even though you didn't mean to do it, you have this thread going from 2019 all the way through to Sludge, in my opinion. Because, like, you have the fluid image that you've talked about, and you've spoken about the Black River back in 2019 and a watery gray, but was the Black River always just filled with sludge, or did it become sludge? I like that. Just a whole other way of looking at it, you know, without having known the inside details.
I never even thought about that, but that's cool. I'm going to use that, man.
Yeah, brother, do it.
Cool, man.
Yes. Hell yeah. So you just mentioned Dio. Can you sing Dio?
I wish.
See, I've tried and I die. And then it doesn't work. It's a fake Dio.
Yeah, I mean, I can sing it my way, but it's not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's not like him. I know.
Like, I don't know how he did that, man. It's crazy. It's he's always someone I listen to his voice, and I'm just like, what? It makes me want to quit. You know what I mean? You're just like, it's unfair how good he was at that.
What I love about Dio is like everybody who, after they see me sing for the first time, the most common compliment I get. Okay, this is my most common compliment. I never knew a voice like that could come out of somebody so small. Like, I didn't know such a big voice. You know, you're so tiny. And I'd be like, thank you so much. But it's like Dio is one of those guys, you know, and Axl Rose and Brian Johnson. They're all freaking shorties, man. Like, you know, we're powerhouse screamers, yo.
Yeah.
So
I think there's something behind that too. I have a theory about that and the distance between your diaphragm and your face, you know?
Oh, I like it.
Maybe it's bullshit, but I feel like there's a thing there because there's too many examples of that. You know what I mean? Nazareth too, same thing, shorter guy, and had that
Journey,
same kind of thing, right? Same kind of voice, right?
Yeah, it's wild. But I mean, I was a kid and I was doing plays, and then my mom was like, I got stuck doing like a big play when I was very young, and I had to learn like 100 lines, and my mom was teaching me how to project my voice because she'd done theater. And I took that with me. When I started singing in the beginning, I was just projecting my voice and I was doing it in a very theatrical style. Nice. Then I went to theater school and I went in choir. And like you said about being asked to do backing vocals, I'm going to tell you something. If you could do backing vocals, it means you have a greater understanding of the whole picture. Like, not everyone can do backing vocals, myself included. I find it difficult.
It's tricky
to figure out good backing vocals. And I was saying the other day about like my favorite thing of Queens of the Stone Age and Josh Homme is his backing vocals. Those are like so incredibly hooky that when I hear the songs played on acoustic without them by somebody else, I'm like, no. I have to sing those wavy backing vocals with it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
And Miles Kennedy, gosh, I love him so much. And the first time I saw him live, I was at Blues Fest here in Ottawa, and he was with Slash, and it was insane, man. I couldn't believe it. I was like, so I turned to my friend because I really didn't know much about him yet, and I turned to my buddy and I was like, he's singing Axl Rose, but he's doing it better than the original. I'm like, how is that possible?
Crazy,
you know,
stuff.
like he's so good, and of course, all of his own stuff is incredible. So who do people compare you to vocally? Did they compare you to Miles?
People say that, yeah. I've gotten that a few times, which is like, that's always like, thank you so much. That's my favorite. And Ozzy, I get a bunch, and I kind of, with the hair, I look a little bit like Ozzy if it's in my face. And, you know what I mean? So people say that. And Ian
Huge
Gillan,
compliment.
Huge compliments. All of these are, I'm always like, are you sure? Really?
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I mean, what's the other one I was going to say too? Some people have said, it's funny actually, because they'll start it with like, I mean this as a compliment, right? And I'm like, oh no.
Here it comes.
And they're like, you sound like Geddy Lee. You know what I mean? And I'm like, hey man, I love Rush. I'll take it. That's a compliment in my books. He's got such a unique voice.
So the thing in common there, Geddy Lee, Ozzy Osbourne, these guys have voices which are incredible. And throughout time, these voices are able to sit on top of any mix. And I try and tell people, like, the first thing I fought so hard to do as a vocalist was to get, as a rock vocalist, was to get my voice in front of that band and make, not just in the right layer of mixing without anyone having to touch anything. I want to get my voice in the right place with that microphone,
Totally.
And when you have that right range, which you do, the voice just sits perfectly on top. And Ozzy never lost it, which is just so wild.
Yeah, like those last 2 albums he did, it's like, were you like 30 when you recorded this? Like, did they go back in time? It doesn't make any sense to me, right? Like, it's crazy good.
Yeah, I wonder if they had some special AI tools.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Like, my friend, one of my friends was like, oh, like they must have had old tapes or something. I'm like, there's no way. They wrote it on the spot in the room with Chad Smith, everybody. And so I don't know. It's crazy because he also smoked for a long time. So it's crazy how he kept that clarity. So it's so clean still, right? Like, it's wild.
If he were doing cocaine, let's say he spent 10 years doing cocaine. I don't know what he did. I honestly have no idea. But if he did, how does that shit not burn a hole through your nasal passage and your throat and everything? I don't know how that doesn't cause long-term damage for vocalists.
Exactly.
Like, it just seems like it would fuck you up, mess you up good.
Exactly. And all the drugs he did too, especially, like, your body's your instrument. So it's like, how did it not, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
Yeah. He's a legend. He's an absolute legend. And I've forever bragged to people the one time that Taming Sorry ever charted in the top 40, Ozzy Osbourne was number 1. And, when we hit 35, that's what I tell people. I'm like, I woke up and Ozzy Osbourne was number 1 and I was 35 and I was okay with it.
Yeah.
I was totally okay with that. I was like,
that's awesome, man. That's
yeah, man. Fuck. And that's why we do this, for little moments of pure pleasure, pure joy of childhood realization. Like you said, you wanted to do this since you were young and you're doing it. So years ago, you were signed. You were like, as another band looking in, I was like, we're like, the Jailbirds, they're a signed band. Like, how the hell they do that? How'd they do that? Is being signed more, is it bigger than what people think it is? Is it more than what people think it is?
It definitely, well, you could argue that it, even if it does seem bigger than it is, you could argue that makes it bigger. You know what I mean? Because it's like you said, like, you outsider looking in, it's like, oh my God, like, this is hype, right? Like, we need to be a part of this or something. And that's kind of what it's all about, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And it's like, labels are labels and they have their place for sure. Like, I think there's a lot of people that say, like, oh, who needs a label? It completely depends on what you want to do. You know what I mean? It depends on what your goals are and if you want to spend your own money or not, things like that. Control can be a thing. Maybe the label, they're paying for stuff, they might want more control or something, and maybe you don't want that. But for us, we were lucky to be in a position where we had full control over the creativity of everything and kept our masters and all that stuff. That was really important to me. That's what I learned in school. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And I think there's an important place for it. You know what I mean? And it's like, it just depends on your goals. It depends on what you're trying to do, really. Because you can use bands like, there's a better example than this, but Metallica, they don't have a label. They have their own label, but they're Metallica. You know what I mean? So it's like, they don't need a label. Of course not. They'll still sell out all the stadiums without one.
Technically, you're the only person I know, like, only band I know besides Metallica, where it's like, people like Metallica's, they were in one band. Like, Kirk was in one, he was in one fucking band. And then that band is still going all these years later. And it's like, you're like that too, man. Like, that's going to be amazing. When you're like 98 years old, you'll be like, I played longer than the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And it's going to be awesome, man.
Yeah, dude.
I want to ask you about the artwork
Yeah.
that you guys have, because I love it. I love all of your artwork going all the way back. I'm like, wow, so cool. And it reminds me a little bit, but not just a little bit, of like how I'm jealous about Crownlands. We'll put it that way. I'm jealous of Crownlands artwork all the time. I'm always like, that's so beautiful. And then, you know what I mean? And then I look at yours and I get very similar vibes. I'm like, that's so great. I love it. And, but yeah, how does it come to be?
We worked with a few different artists over the years. A lot of the bulk of it, I guess, so far has been this gentleman named Agelos from Greece, and his handle is Be Wild Brother on Instagram if you want to take a look. And he's great. And for the longest time, actually, we wouldn't even send him concepts or anything. We would just sort of, here's the lyrics. Sometimes I didn't even send him the song. It was just the lyrics. And he would just come back with, like, he did Watery Grave, for example. And he fucking nailed it, right? And it's just like, we saw that that was the one draft. There was no revision. That was what he delivered. And we were like, yep, nailed it. Cool. Next, and he just, we've been lucky with that too. The only concept, I'm trying to think now. I think the only concept that we came up with ourselves was High Noon so far. And that was something we wrote on like a napkin or something. And we were just like, oh, I want it to be like space for the modern rock vibe, right? But it's like a doorway into like the Western 1800s time, which is like our, old school classic rock vibe that we have as well. And so that was sort of the idea behind that. But other than that, really, it was just, I think there's something to be said about letting the artist do their thing, Same with tattoos. I have a lot of tattoos, as you can see. And I just let them do their thing and not try to like control it too much, because I feel like it gets a better result, And we've been lucky with that. So we keep doing it.
Yeah. I love it. Look, we took our art, like our concept, to a tattoo artist many years ago. And then she was nice enough that she sold us like the original drawings and everything. And
cool.
Yeah, so nice of her. And like, so that's how we got the original image. Then we took that to a logo person, and he took that image and turned that into a logo.
Right.
Which was, it was all fun and I'm happy with it. But like the artistic process, I like what you guys did, having like talking to a professional on the outside. Sometimes with our song logo art, I felt like we did it too much in-house and we should have looked outwards. And that's a thing I think that's hard for bands sometimes, is like to understand like when it is time, what junctures to look outward. It's like, because we want to do everything ourselves. We have to save money. We have to do this. We have to do that. But in reality, like any business, you want the best professionals doing certain tasks.
Totally.
If you want optimal results,
Yeah.
So I really enjoy it. And the artwork that I think is my favorite is the van going off the cliff with the sign.
Yeah.
And which song is that?
I'll Move On.
Okay, yeah, I love that. I think that's very memorable visual. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about the Wild High a little bit.
Sure.
Actually, wait. No, we won't. Sorry, folks. You don't get the Wild High yet. First, let's talk about shows coming up for the Jailbirds.
Sure.
Let's talk about Indieweek, because I love Indieweek. I went there in 2015, and it really was like a Kickstarter for me in taking my music seriously and, seeing it in a different light, meeting all these great performers. Have you done Indieweek in the past?
I don't think so. I think this might be our first one, actually.
Cool.
That's the next thing on the chopping block there. We're playing November 14th, which is in a few days from now. Yeah, but I don't think we have done it before. I'm trying to think, and I don't think we've done it in the past. We got asked to do it, and we're like, yeah, sure. That sounds good. That sounds like a cool thing. Just like you said, you get to meet a lot of other bands that you might not have had the chance to connect with and stuff. There's a couple on our night that I'm like been meaning to connect with too, actually, funny enough. So I'm just like, shit, this is perfect. And yeah, it's always a good time with that kind of thing, especially if you're trying to, like we just sort of said, like you're trying to meet new people, which is very important, obviously. And that can be sometimes the most fruitful moments with that kind of thing, right? Like we've done a few festivals like that, like Gussapalooza is another one up in Innisfil, Ontario, and that one, same sort of thing. It's except that one took it a step further, and it's like all camping and shit over the weekend. And so after our set, we were able to have a drink and hang out with buddies that we never get to hang out with because at shows you're working, right? And it's like we got to load out, we got to drive home, we got to do whatever. So there's not a lot of time sometimes to really bro out or whatever you want to do. And but that was a really cool experience playing Gussapalooza because we were there all night and we could just hang out. So that was pretty cool. Love doing that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've asked other people about that's great that you did Gussapalooza, and it was a great event, right? It was really cool.
It was sick. It was so sick. We almost did it this year too, but we just couldn't make it work for some reason. I can't remember why, but hopefully we get to do it next year because it was such a great experience. It was so cool. Yeah.
Did you guys do voodoo in the past?
Yeah, we've done that a couple times too. And same thing, same exact thing. You get to hang out with all these great people who are really into music, and not only the fans and then but the bands too. You get a bunch of bands there that you might have not had the chance to connect with before. Yeah.
And then you're doing venue by venue or VenuexVenue in London, Ontario. So that's a little bit closer to your home, I think, right?
That is the Indieweek thing, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that is? Okay, cool.
That's like sponsored by Indieweek. Yeah. So it's
wicked.
Together by Indieweek, I guess. It's like a sub.
Yeah. So that's on November 14th.
That's the November 14th in London. And
what's the venue called?
Seven Social. So
Seven Social. Okay, get out there.
Too, so I might do that.
So you're in Guelph, right?
Yeah.
What's Guelph like? I have no idea.
Guelph is awesome. I love it. My partner and I moved here a few years ago. The other boys in Jailbirds are from Mississauga, and Wild High guys are from Hamilton. But I built a studio in this house, and that's where I kind of record all my stuff now. And Guelph has a great music scene. It's crazy, actually, how many great bands are from Guelph, and you can kind of go any weekend you want. Just go downtown core, and it's not very big or anything, but there's a few venues, and you can see some awesome stuff down here. I've had some really good experiences in Guelph, and not to mention, I just like how it just seems to be what's the best way I can put it? It's like a good mix of city and farm for me. It's like it's a happy medium where it's enough of both for me. And it's also pretty awesome that it's like Green Party. It's like the only seat in Canada that was voted in. So it's kind of funny. It's like super awesome on the just the environmental protections and waste removal, little things like that. It really adds up. It's really cool.
Yeah. And how do you find, did you record most of the Jailbirds music?
No, I co-produced it with Matt Grady, who worked at Emacs Studios, which was in London. The owners of Emacs Studios are professors at Fanshawe College, which is how I met them. And that was just the place to be, really, for anybody who went to that school. And so we recorded everything that's out now. We recorded there, and Matt mixed it and everything. But especially on the Jungle EP and High Noon EP, I really dove into production with him. And actually on High Noon EP, I recorded all the vocals myself at my studio. And so, it was sort of a hybrid at that point. But
cool.
Yeah, moving forward, we're actually in the middle of recording an album's worth of stuff. And that's been all me producing it and recording the bulk of it. We worked with someone before I had my studio space. We did work with a gentleman named Kevin Dietz, who helped us engineer and stuff for the drums. We were all playing live in the room and stuff, so we needed someone to come in with us. And we did that at Union Sound in Toronto. And yeah, everything else is going to be at my place, ToneHenge. Yeah.
Excellent. Very, very cool. And again, I think you're doing it the right way by having other people to bounce ideas off of. It can be so daunting and difficult to make the final decisions when you're doing it yourself.
Yeah.
And you're like, is this right? You've been listening to it for so long, and you go a bit squirrely. And so I'm glad you have that. But although you seem very calm, you seem like a very, very calm fellow.
Thanks, man.
Which is a good thing, I think. I heard, so getting into a little bit of the Wild High for a minute,
Sure.
I was listening to the cover, Hey Tonight, and it's so funny because, okay, so Jon Harvey is like one of my favorite vocalists. He's he's one of my he's one of my influences into my voice and like to what people will say, like, oh, Warren, like, man, you have like a cool monster truck vibe. And when people say that, I feel great. Like, I'm excited. I'm like, that dude is fucking awesome. Yeah. And it's so funny because I didn't know yet that you guys released this cover, and I've been practicing it with a band, like adding it in as a cover, and I was just like, oh, that's so awesome. That like, because that is the vibe of the Wild High, is like that CCR style of rock.
Totally, that's the vibe. It's really, it's the best way we can describe it. Is it's like rock leaning sort of country. You know what I mean? I hate to say country, but it's like the CCR, Stapleton kind of country, you know, Johnny Cash, that kind of country.
It's like you said, meeting the farm, you know?
Yeah.
What I love about CCR is it brings back all my imagery, my nostalgia from my childhood when I grew up in a town of 1,400 people. And so they just the lyrics describe a lot of my childhood. Yeah. Without him even trying to, that's the genius of it. But you know, so I loved getting the feeling from Luke and Lee. Right away, I got that feeling of telling the stories, of the way of how fun it was, and like the good days, and maybe we can get back to the good days. Yeah. And it's very, like, for me, again, that's what I was trying to capture a little bit when we did Crazy. I wanted to capture that feeling of that nostalgia and bring it all back, you know? Yeah. And God, I'm excited for what you guys are going to release with the Wild High. I'm excited for both projects because I was telling you earlier, they're so different.
Yeah. I had to relearn guitar for Wild High. A lot of major keys and like things that I'm not used to playing. I do a lot of slide in that band too. And it's crazy. It's a whole new, I love it because it really challenged me to learn like a new sort of style. You know what I mean? And I had never really played that kind of stuff before. I was mainly into metal and hard rock and Van Halen and all this stuff. And now it's, CCR, and we do an old Paul McCartney song, and it's really like, it's got that country vibe to it, you know, and you can't be like doing the same vibrato on that shit. You know what I mean? Like that sort of Zakk Wylde sort of shake on it. It doesn't work. You know what I mean? It sounds stupid. So you gotta really, it's like I'm like a whole other person in that band. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really cool. Yeah.
Well, that makes me think of one of my favorite scenes from The Matrix. I'll just date myself here, but one of my favorite scenes from The Matrix, you know, and he goes, upgrades. You know, it's like you just got plugged into a new part of the Matrix, and you're getting uploaded with all this new data, and you're like, ooh, upgrades. Like now I can do this, or I can do this. And that's really cool because like the type of rock you do in the Jailbirds, or that type that influenced you, like I love it, but for me performing it, it's very difficult. And I wish I could do a little bit more of it. I wish I could do a little bit more of gosh. Sometimes people be like, "Oh, Warren, you remind me of Lane Staley," and I'll be like, "No. I do some whining and I do some a little bit of wailing, but no, don't ever, like, come on." Like, you know what I mean? People sometimes they pick up on the sentiment, or that's the right word. Yeah, the flavoring of things, you know?
Exactly.
But I mean, are you primarily a guitarist and backing vocalist in the Wild High?
Yeah, I sing a couple leads here and there, and there's like, but mainly it's backup vocals. I've kind of always had a knack for that kind of thing too. Like I said, I sort of started as a backup vocalist, and but I've always also just for some reason I've always been fascinated with harmonies, vocal harmonies, and I mean you can hear that on Jailbird stuff. There's like a million harmonies and all that stuff too. But I've always just like singing anything, any example of a song, playing it in the car or something, and I would just find a harmony to it, and just that's how I would sing it in the car, and just like that was fun for me. It was like something I just did, and so it just comes naturally to me at this point where it's like there's the lead. Oh, okay, I can hear the under harmony, I can hear the above harmony in my head, and it just sort of happens. Yeah.
That's a great gift. That's great. I mean, if you can just, right? If things just click like that, that's great. And man, well, you must know, like you're doing a lot of things right. Like you're working with a great Canadian artist, in my opinion. I've never spoken with Jon or anything, but just as a fan, I'm like, congratulations, Myke. I think that's fantastic. And I mean, congratulations on your EP release as well. I saw like a lot for Jailbirds. I saw like a lot of people were out partying with you guys.
Yeah, that show on Friday night there, that was crazy, man. That was such a good time. We threw a release party at the Cave, which is the new venue above Lee's Palace there, and it was wild. You always you're always are like worried if you're playing. We played at like 10:30 or something, which isn't super late. But you're always afraid, like, oh, are people going to stick around for us and stuff? And you're always worried and nervous about that. But it was wonderful. We had so many awesome people come out and just they knew our songs and shit. And so we were just like looking at each other like, this is fucking crazy. This is so cool. And we worked really, really, really hard for that show. And the set list that we put together was mental. And yeah, it was a big payoff for sure in that regard. So it was awesome. Yeah.
It looked awesome. Is there touring dates on the horizon for either band?
Wild High, no, not right now. We're just sort of recording a bunch of stuff. I'm actually recording stuff at my place. And actually I did Hate Tonight too. I recorded that one. I mixed it.
Nice. Very nice.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that turned out pretty good, I think. And we did, we're doing 3 more songs here, probably some more. We're learning a bunch of new songs right now. And then Jailbirds wise, we have that venue by venue thing, Indieweek thing. And then we're doing a fundraiser at Maxwell's in Waterloo, Ontario as well. That's on the 28th of November. And that's like a fundraiser for mental health services and things, which is something that we really resonate with. A lot of our music is about that kind of thing, the struggles of mental health and everything. And so it was a natural pairing. There's a lot of great bands on that venue or on that bill as well, like Feral Minx and Sky Wallace and Villavant and Havilon Stone. And I'm forgetting other ones right now. Sorry, but it's such a great bill. Like we saw the lineup. We're like, yeah, we're so happy to be on this. This is so cool. And then after that, we're just working on that record I talked about earlier. And we do have, I guess, it's being announced tomorrow, actually, on the 12th of November. So I guess I'll just say it now. It doesn't really matter. It's going to come out after that. But we're going to be opening for Return to Dust, which is an American band. They're coming up from the States, and we're going to be playing with them at Velvet Underground on December 1st. So that'll
awesome.
That'll be really sick too. Can't wait for that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And like that bill you were talking about, you were naming off the bands, and I was like, whoa, like
it's a stacked lineup, man. Yeah,
so many good names there. Have you played with Villavant before?
Yeah, once or twice. Definitely once. We did a show in Mississauga with I think she opened the show. She's great too. I actually almost played guitar in her band a little bit too. Just didn't work out, sadly, but just scheduling or something, I think. But yeah, it's funny how all that stuff sort of intertwines sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a great voice. So much.
Yeah.
So much power in that voice. I'd love to do shows with her down the road, and I want to do more shows with you as well.
Yeah, I'm down.
So let's have a little bit of fun. What else does Myke Penney love? What else is Myke Penney passionate about in this world besides music, besides rock music? What might surprise somebody?
Might surprise somebody? I was going to say like cooking is one thing. That might not be surprising. I don't know. Maybe it is surprising.
I mean, that's really cool.
Yeah, I like cooking. You know, I enjoy it. It's something that actually everybody in the Jailbirds loves cooking. We're all always sharing recipes and things. And something that might be surprising. It's probably not surprising, but I play like a lot of video games and stuff too. I'm a big nerd for that kind of stuff. Actually, my tattoo sleeve is very nerdy. I'll show it to you quickly. I've got Pokemon, Charizard there, and Venusaur, and I got Spider-Man stuff up here. Oh, I'm not going the right way. Spider-Man, and I got Venom and Green Goblin and all this cool stuff, and Link, and all this stuff is Metroid up here. And so it's just a big nerd sleeve, really. And people always I've had people almost like pick a fight with me over my tattoos. Like, oh, you think you're a tough guy? You know what I mean? I'm just like, have you looked at them? they're pretty nerdy, dude. Not at all trying to be tough, dude. You know what I mean? Like, that's not,
People try to fight you because of your tattoos? Dude. Like, they tried to like be aggressive with you?
Yeah, man. Oh, there's one story I remember where we went to this showing at a movie theater. What was it called? It was a Soundgarden live performance that they put on the big screen, which was sick. And we went there, and there was this guy who was being really annoying, belligerent behind us. And I can't even exaggerate this. Like, if I'm sitting here and there's a person beside me, like, he was coming like right between our heads and screaming, like, yeah, just like, we're like, dude, like, chill the fuck out. What are you doing? It's a movie theater, first of all, not a concert. It was crazy. He was just being a complete asshole. And after the thing, I'm standing, because friends went to the washroom, so I'm standing there alone. And he just comes up to me and he's like, oh, you're the guy that told me to go fuck myself, basically. And I didn't say that many words to him. But I was like, dude, chill. You know what I mean? Like, we're trying to have a good time. Just chill. What are you doing? Let's have a good time. And he starts going, yeah, he puts his finger on me. He's like, and I'm just like, what are you doing, dude? I just swatted his hand away. You know what I mean? He's like, who do you think you are? He's also like half my size, so that was kind of weird. But he's just like, all your tattoos and stuff. You think you're a tough guy. And I'm just like, no, man, I think you think you're the tough guy. It was so weird, man. I was like, just get away from me. And then he was obviously drunk, right? And his friends came over. I'm so sorry about him. He's just this. I'm like, take him away. You know what I mean? It was so embarrassing for him.
Good grief, man. I've asked a few people recently, like, have you ever had anyone go up and like try and take the mic from you while you're performing, or someone come up, try and get on stage with you?
Yep. I've had that.
It's pretty wild, eh? Like, one of the girls who was on here, and I was talking to her, she must be like 5'2" or whatever. And she was like, I just pushed them off the stage.
Nice.
She does a lot of shows at like Heart and Crown here in Ottawa, and at like venues where it's like very popular with the university kids, and they're going for like cover shows, like to go get hammered. You know what I mean? And the band plays for like 3 hours. Yep. So she's just like, yeah, they come all the time. I just push them away. And I'm like, you know what will happen if I try and do that? I'll probably get punched. 1 out of 5 times that I make contact with somebody, like it's a little bit sketchy when people come up on stage.
Oh yeah.
And I don't like it. No, I hate it. I feel like I'm a comedian getting heckled, and I have to deal with this heckler all of a sudden. And it's just like people are like, oh, I can't believe Josh Homme kicked that guy in the face or whatever. I'm like, I can believe it. I can believe it. Sadly enough, like, I've seen enough stupidity from people throwing shit.
Yep. That's his stage, man.
Yeah, and if someone tried to like throw something at my guitar player, I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna notice it, and I'm not gonna like forget either. So I mean, that's the thing. I think people just think we're up there and we don't know what's going on or something.
It's bizarre. I don't understand it.
like,
I would never be, I can't wrap my head around that mindset where you think you're allowed to go up on the stage. It's just like, what are you doing? Like, no one's here to hear you do whatever you think you're going to do into the microphone. Also, don't touch my microphone. Like, that's gross. You know what I mean? So many levels, so many layers of what the fuck, right? Like, it's just,
yes.
talk about it all day, really.
It's a good thing that musicians, that we aren't like mafiosos where it's like it's all about respect and disrespect. Because I tell you, folks, sometimes people come up to like, can I play that drum kit? No, you cannot play the drum kit. Well, can I touch that guitar? No, you cannot touch the guitar.
Yeah. Like, I don't even know you. I don't know what you're capable of. You know what I mean? Like, get away from my expensive pedals and shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, get your open beer away from my expensive shit that you can ruin in a split second. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And the other thing that I've been joking about with people just before we end here is I talk to people about the Uncle Rico factor. And that is like, if I do like a big show, and I open for like any of the big bands I've ever opened for, been fortunate enough to work with, it's always attracted Uncle Rico. And it's like, they come out and they're like, man, they're hammered. They're hammered. The show is over and they're just like, when I was like 19, I opened for the Scorpions. And I also like Led Zeppelin. I talked to them. Okay.
Yeah.
And they were probably going to take us on tour, but I couldn't because like I was doing this and that. And like, you know, they go on and on, and you're just like, dude, like, I don't have anything. Like, the whole point is like, you gave up music so you could go be comfortable and like live your life. It's like, it's not like that for musicians. Like, yeah, we get to have great moments, but there's sacrifice involved, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
And I sometimes think the Uncle Ricos, they're not remembering the sacrifice it takes, you know? But God, I love people who support rock music. So, you know, F Warren and is laughing at people tonight. But hey, sometimes you gotta laugh.
As long as they don't throw a cooked steak at you on stage, right?
I'd laugh. I'd be mad in the moment, but then later I'd be like, that's genius. I love it.
That'd be great.
Oh man. Thank you so much to Myke Penney of the Jailbirds, of the Wild High. Myke, what's your studio name again?
ToneHenge.
Stonehenge?
ToneHenge.
ToneHenge. All right, folks. If you're in the Guelph area, check out ToneHenge. Go get some stuff recorded with Myke. I think that'll be a great experience. And congratulations, Myke, on all the cool stuff, the shows, the music, everything. Keep it up, man. Just keep it up. And I know you will. Anything else you want to leave us with?
No, just that's great. Thanks so much, man, for having me on. I really enjoyed this conversation. Actually, it was a lot of fun and loved the questions and everything, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much again to Myke Penney. And thank you out there to you lovely folks for watching. And we'll see you all again next time on All Worn Out. Bye-bye, everybody.
See ya.